So you want to be an adventurer, you say? You want to explore the darkest of dungeons, slay terrible dragons, fight back fiery fiends, and solve century-old puzzles? Well, you're gonna need some stuff. Magic items are cool. We all love our +1 long swords, but if you really want to be a great Dungeons & Dragons 5e party, having the right mundane items with you could be the difference between life and death. So, here is my list of the 15 absolutely best must-have mundane common items in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. Okay, this first one is easy and frankly boring, so let's just get it out of the way now. Rope. You've got to have rope. Every party should have 150 feet or more of rope on them at any given time. I mean, honestly, between simple tasks like tying up your enemies, to binding the hands of your enemies, to fastening the hands of your captured enemies together, rope just has so many uses for the average party of murder hobo adventurers. As a fun little rope trick for you, tie a weight to the end of your rope like a grapple, and the next time an enemy turns invisible in front of you, pull out your rope and start swinging it around in a 15-foot circle like an old school Skip It. Yes, that was a 1991 Skip It toy reference. You're welcome. Next up, we have probably the single most underrated mundane item in all of D&D, chalk. Holy smokes, chalk is a must-have. Here's the deal. Chalk is the single most effective way to not get lost in a dungeon. But while I will fully admit that that may be a rare occurrence for your party to sort of fall into this niche situation, what makes chalk a must-have is just how cheap it is and light it is to carry. Seriously, a piece of chalk costs, wait for this, 1 single copper piece, and it has no discernible weight. So just buy 10 of them and hand them out to everybody. You're done. Next up, we have one of my favorites, which I've talked about before here on the channel, a simple scroll tube. I can think of lots of different ways to use a scroll tube, most of which involve carrying small bits and bobs, but my favorite is to combine it with the light spell. Why? Easy. Cast light on a bit of rag or cloth and throw that into the scroll tube. You now have the perfect light source that you can cover easily and quickly if you need to hide, aka a flashlight. Our next item is something that after years, literal years of using them in games, decades, seriously, I have just realized I've been pronouncing incorrectly the entire time, PITONS, or as I'm sure many of you know them as, PITONS. There are so many great uses for PITONS, like jamming doors if you need to sleep in a dungeon, climbing up and sometimes down, cliff sides or something similar that's very steep, making sure your DM doesn't kill your character randomly by having a crap mountainside walkway just give out on you. You can even use several PITONs to anchor if you want to Gulliver's Travels somebody down to the ground. And don't forget, you can always use several of them in conjunction if you need to anchor something really heavy, say for your block and tackle that's lowering down your pack mule loaded with bags of gold from a slain dragon's hoard. Speaking of which, that brings us to our next pair of items, a small sledgehammer and a block and tackle. Most of the time these are needed alongside your PITONs, but any adventuring party worth its salt should have at least one set of these between them. To buy both is literally 2 gold and 8 pounds. And while the block and tackle may not be needed as often, the amount of times you will end up using your hammer might shock you. Also, don't dismiss the pulley so quickly. A little bit of fun math for everybody. For each pulley you add to your system, you are creating a mechanical advantage of an additional unit of force. Now, you also have to increase the distance that you pull the rope for each pulley. So if you wanted to lift, say, a cinder block 1 foot up with 1 pulley, you would in essence need to pull the rope 2 feet. However, with your mechanical advantage, you would only need to apply half the force to do so. And the player's handbook was kind enough to let us know that the mechanical advantage for a block and tackle system is 4-to-1, which, while it doesn't say this specifically, would typically be referred to as a double tackle. But the reason I want to point all of this out is that by adding 2 of these block and tackles together, you would create a mechanical advantage of 8-to-1. So don't think that 4-to-1 from the PHB is the cap. Use your ingenuity and anchor these to multiple points in order to spread out the weight when you are lifting a dead giant off like a trap door that they fell on. Again, you just need lots of ropes and PITONs and a hammer to drive your PITONs, and maybe you could carry a few of those in like a scroll tube or something. I don't know. The next mundane item on our must-have list is a colored waxed candle. Basically what we're doing here is creating a super large crayon, or as we say in Texas, a crown. Yes, that's seriously how we say crayon. I'm not even kidding. So now whenever we come across some crazy runes carved into a wall or portal, there is no need to jot them down perfectly. We can literally just get a quick rubbing of it and move on. And if our Dungeon Master pulls the old, quote, important secret page ripped out of a book gag, then there's a chance that we can still see what was written, depending on how much time has passed and how much your DM runs with the rule of cool. Next up, we have another pair of items I want to group together for a little trick, a fishing line and a bell. This is truly one of my favorite little tricks to use, and I'm sure most of you guys get what we're going to do. We're going to make ourselves a little alarm that takes almost nothing to set up by creating a trip line either with or without the bell. Want to know exactly when to light a small trail of oil to set the entire hallway on fire? Just wait around the corner and listen for that little bell and laugh like a maniac. Want to see if anyone is following you into the cave? Fishing line and bell. Want a little extra security to wake the camp up even though someone is on watch? You guessed it. And by the way, if you don't think adventurers wouldn't snap awake at the sound of a little bell while they camp, I'm guessing you don't have kids yet. I sleep with a CPAP and huge Texas thunderstorms roll through without stirring me even the tiniest bit. But my son's bedroom door at 6:15 a.m. wakes my wife and I up immediately. So fellow parents out there, please feel free to back me up in the comment section. I'm totally convinced that this would be far more effective than you might think at raising everybody's attention from sleep and waking them up. Oh, and by the way, 6 pitons with 3 fishing lines between them would trip a minotaur if it was chasing you. Hello, prone and surprise target. I'd like you to meet my friends. Advantage, extra attack, and surprise, mother. Next up, we have the incredible bag of flour. Why is flour awesome? Because invisibility. Flour everywhere. And of course, you could use it to like detect drafts, I guess. But all of this is lame compared to the best reason to use it, and that's because flour apparently is like crazy flammable. Seriously, Google it. I'm picturing a small bag of flour sitting in the middle of the hall. Then suddenly, right when 2 orcs come up to investigate it, bam! Flaming arrow explosion time. For those of you who don't believe me, I'll throw a link to someone blowing up 4 bags of flour, and I'll warn you, the sound is legit if you're not expecting it and wearing earbuds, so be careful. Next up, we have something in a very similar vein with what I'll just call pocket sand. Now, more than actual sand in traditional Japanese ninjutsu, metsubushi was typically made from ground up pepper and glass fragments and stored in hollowed out eggshells sealed with rice glue paste. And I know many of you dungeon masters out there might want to deny the effectiveness of this because there are not clear defined rules in the game, or even giving a reflex save to avoid being blinded for X amount of rounds seems abusable by your players. But if caught unaware, the Metsubushi egg would absolutely cripple an opponent, even if only for a round or 2. Oh, and another way to use this is just with an empty scabbard. Simply crush up sand and bits of glass, fill your scabbard about 1/3 of the way, and you now have a tube in which to sling this into someone's face from like 10 to 15 feet away. Also, if you're planning on using this, please do me a favor and talk to your DM about the mechanics first. Throwing this out in the middle of the game as a smarty pants, oh I got you DM moment is kind of lame. And for you DMs, consider giving this attack a once per day effectiveness similar to the mummy's dreadful glare, as the opponent won't get caught off guard a second time within the same day or combat or whatever, you get it. After that, we have the incredible bag of caltrops. Let me just say, I know ball bearings exist, but caltrops are superior in every single way excluding covered area. Caltrops are insane. They have a solid 15 dex save, they deal damage, they can stop a foe dead in their tracks, they can even reduce your opponent's speed until they heal for 1 gold piece and 2 pounds of weight. Buy 4 of them. Seriously, just like always have at least 4 bags on the party at any given time. Your wizard and arcane archer, thank you ahead of time. Our next must-have item is a signal whistle. I mean, if you're tired of your fellow adventurers splitting the party and having to stay within 120 feet for the wizard's message spell to just barely be in range, try the signal whistle. It's literally 5 copper pieces. And let me just say, you guys in my 5e Patreon campaign, taking on Grudhog at the moment, y'all could have used a few of these bad boys over the last few sessions, and you know I'm telling the truth. So, next time your group gets paid 50 gold each for a quest reward, spend 5 copper on a whistle instead of just immediately at the tavern. That last part was for everybody, not just for that one group. Our penultimate must-have mundane item is not a set of manacles or even a mirror. It's not even a 10-foot pole, but rather a pouch full of 20 silver pieces. Yes, you heard that right. It blows my mind that players don't use and abuse just how unbelievably filthy rich most of them typically are. If we were to translate the amount of gold an entire party of level 10 adventurers has on them at any given time, it would be like you and your friends walking down the street with 200 grand in your pockets. But you are also each a deadly assassin, more than capable of defending yourselves from street thugs. All joking aside, on page 159 in your player's handbook, we get a table with a bunch of random expenses, like how a messenger to the next town over is 2 copper per mile, or a coach cab within a city is just 1 copper. Like, why are you walking anywhere? We're not even talking about general labor and hirelings. You want a dozen untrained workers to set up a constant perimeter around your tavern for the next 48 hours straight? Hire a bunch of them and give them all whistles. They're only 5 copper pieces each, and the lookouts are just 2 silver a day. Also, and I have to totally give credit to a random Redditor for this pretty clever idea, if you and your party have ever tried to stake out an area before and you're not sure if it is still actively getting foot traffic, the easiest way to tell is to simply place a silver coin down where it could be found and wait a couple days. If it's gone when you come back, the area still has activity. For those of you wizards who love to use the alarm spell but aren't sure where to put it when you camp, put a coin smack dab in the middle of your casting area to make sure those pesky goblins and brigands walk exactly where you've laid your alarm spell. And finally, that brings us to our 15th and final must-have mundane item for your Dungeons & Dragons 5e game, a creepy wooden mask. Okay, maybe that's an exaggeration. Clearly a mask is not actually necessary or really even that useful in a traditional sense. But trust me, the next time your party hits up a big city, go find a woodworker that can whip you up a mask. As far as roleplay and shenanigans, full-faced masks cannot be beaten and are worth every gold piece. Trust me. I know I covered this in a video probably a few years back now on the Stalker of Nezra, which is a rumor my bard Oliver Ridley started about the existence of a creepy floating specter whose single touch would kill a man. After I had planted the seeds within the city for a few days, I snuck up on a pair of thugs standing guard in front of an area that my group needed to sneak into. I then had my butler, Gerard, my unseen servant, hold up a cloak and creepy mask. I ran out from the bushes screaming, "No, it's the Stalker of Nezra! Don't let it touch me!" And I had it close in on me while I pretended to fall over and die. Then I had a look at the guards while I lay there, and I secretly cast Dissonant Whispers, a purely verbal spell, causing only one of the guards to hear whispers of evil and forcing it to basically run away immediately. Needless to say, they full-on panicked and my group casually strolled past moments later. But the mask is the key. And I imagine you guys could probably come up with about 1,000 other awesome uses for a creepy mask, which is why I am cheekily is a word I hope, including it on this list. It's just too much fun not to. And so now I want to ask you guys, what did I miss? What deserved to be on this list? And what deserved to be left off that I simply rated too high? Also, if your group has had any funny or crazy stories about how you guys used a plain Jane item to the immediate befuddlement of your dungeon master, please, we'd love to hear them. I, of course, want to give an absolute massive thank you to all of my amazing patrons over at welcomeadventures.com. Thank you guys so much for all the support. I know times are crazy right now, and it just matters to me. It matters to my wife, so genuinely, thank you. If you guys like what I do here, you want to support more content like this, welcomeadventures.com is a great way to support the channel and snag some rewards for yourself. If this is your first time here and you love role-playing games as much as I do, I would love to have you subscribe. Every week I put out new videos on GM tips, player tips, tutorials, and more. So if that sounds like something you might be interested in, just hit that subscribe button down below and come join us. Thank you guys so much for watching. My name is Cody, and may your games be filled with awesome memories and even better friends. I'll catch you guys next time.
Yeah.